Hi. Stitch like all alien movies. Stitch gonna watch new trailer for Elio. Yeah. Maybe the aliens are like Stitch. Yeah.
Well, Disney really didn't do this any favors at all, did they? So, just recently, I went to go see the new Pixar movie, Elio. I'd honestly been contemplating whether I wanted to go see this one or not, since I'd seen a lot of trailers for it, but it didn't really entice me at all. But eventually, I got curious enough to go ahead and give this a shot and check it out in theaters. And man, I am really glad I did, and I am very upset at Disney for how they're choosing to market this film.
Hello? Yes, I can hear you. This is Elio.
Hi, Elio.
We're Phineas and Ferb.
Really? You had to have Phineas and Ferb carry this movie? I was really not expecting to enjoy this as much as I did, and I certainly wasn't expecting this to be as genuinely emotional as this film is overall. I think the trailers that Disney is putting out are really underselling this film, possibly intentionally so, which we'll get into here. It's honestly a much different kind of film than I was anticipating based on all the trailers I've seen of it, since all the trailers just make it look overly cute, when really this film actually does have a lot more to it. I remember initially seeing the trailer for this about 2 years ago and thinking it looked rather mediocre. Back then, it was actually supposed to come out in 2024, but obviously it got delayed by a full year, and here we are now with it finally releasing in theaters this month. And yeah, actually, as far as the movies that Pixar has put out in the 2020s, I would say this is probably my favorite apart from Soul. I think Soul is a better movie still, but this is really something special too. I also find it interesting that if you compare a lot of elements from the 2023 trailer to the trailer that was actually released in 2024, there's a weird amount of differences too. I think it's very clear that this film went through a lot of rewrites during its 1-year delay, and I think a big reason for that is actually the interview that Pixar put out featuring Pete Docter not too long ago. In that interview, Pete Docter stated that Pixar would no longer be focusing on personal stories and instead be focusing on mass relatability, which, in my opinion, is a very bad thing. I think that's a terrible idea because Pixar got its start on making really personal, just original stories. When the first Toy Story film came out 30 years ago now, it really caused Pixar to make a name for itself since, at the time, the only other major animation studio in America was Disney. Pixar was really able to bring a fresh new take to animated storytelling that really nobody else could have, not even just because they made the first ever computer animated film, but because of the way they told that story. The way Toy Story, and really every classic Pixar movie overall, is told is so unique and stands out from every single other animation studio out there. They were really able to find their own unique voice with films like Toy Story, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Ratatouille, WALL-E, Up, and so many more. And it really does pain me to hear that they're pretty much going to be doing away with that in the future just simply because the Disney overlords demand it.
I, for one, salute our new corporate overlords.
So, in all honesty, even though I wasn't really excited for Elio, hearing it got delayed really made me think this was going to be something that was totally twisted and made more corporate and generic. And after seeing it, I'm pleasantly surprised to say no, that actually didn't happen here. This still ends up being a really personal and surprisingly emotional story that especially resonated with me. And I think in general, for a lot of other autistic people, this is definitely a film that likely will resonate with you as well. Elio in this film is absolutely an autistic coded character, and I really saw a lot of myself in him. For those unaware, this film was actually set to be directed by Adrian Molina, who directed Coco for Pixar before, which I think is one of their absolute greatest films from the last 10 years. However, at some point during the delay and switch up in direction for this film, he was actually replaced by the Turning Red director. Now, this might be a hot take, but I actually really didn't care for Turning Red, but that's just me, of course. I know there are a lot of people that like this film, and I can definitely see why, but it just wasn't for me personally. So, admittedly, that was also something that made me kind of skeptical of this film to begin with, but after seeing it, like I said, I think it's really good, and I did relate a lot to Elio in this film. For me personally, I just had a really hard time getting invested in the story shown in Turning Red, even though I did find it to be a pretty entertaining film overall. So of course, there were a lot of things in that film that I just personally couldn't relate to, but with Elio, a lot of the stuff in this film I really related to. The main plot here is basically that a young boy named Elio's parents have recently died, so now he is forced to move in with his aunt. And naturally, this is a very difficult time for him both emotionally and mentally, with feelings of grief constantly haunting him. And for him, the only way he feels he can escape these feelings of grief and loneliness, and like nobody on this planet gets him, is that he can be abducted by aliens and hopefully find someone who does get him. He feels that nobody, even his own aunt, his own flesh and blood, really get him and what he's going through. This is something that, funny enough, was actually left out of all the trailers for this film for no real reason at all. They do show him and his aunt in the trailer, but they don't say that it's his aunt, and they don't even discuss the fact that his parents are dead and that's why she's his caretaker now. Honestly, after seeing the trailers, I didn't even think that was a family member of his at all that they were showing there. I figured it was just like a foster parent or something. The fact this is a family member of Elio that very clearly does love him and care about him, but is struggling to comprehend him and why he behaves the way he does, since she's not like him at all and she doesn't have his thought processes. Again, very much a relatable thing from an autistic perspective here, I think actually makes this a lot more compelling. If it had just been a foster parent or guardian or someone that wasn't necessarily related to him, like it showed off in the trailer, or seemed to show off anyway, I don't think I'd be as interested, and honestly, because it looked like that in the trailer, I wasn't as interested. So I really don't like that the marketing for this film is honestly kinda misleading in a lot of ways. Elio's not able to be fully understood by a family member who very clearly is neurotypical, whereas Elio obviously is very autistic coded in this film. Because of that, again, and combined with the grief that he has for losing his parents, it makes him want to leave Earth and get abducted by aliens or just find someone out in the universe that might understand him. And it's not really helps that he keeps getting bullied all the time too for just being different and having a hyperfixation on space. And it's because of this, and like I said before, combined with the grief of losing his parents, he feels like nobody can really understand him at all, and it just causes him to want to leave the planet. Obviously, from an adult perspective, that may seem silly, but from a child's perspective, which is what we're looking at here with Elio, it totally makes sense. And I think especially if we look at him as an autistic coded child, yeah, even more so. Obviously, at some point, as it's shown in the trailer pretty blatantly, Elio does actually get abducted, and he does get his wish. However, I think this is definitely where you can see a major story shift when you compare the two trailers for this film. In the original trailer for this film that came out in 2023, it shows Lord Grygon, this giant crab-like creature who's actually the main villain in the final film, fun fact, as one of the members of the Alien Council of the Communicaverse, which in this film was basically described as the universe's greatest minds united under one roof. And interestingly enough, in the second trailer, they don't show him as part of that council, and they just cut straight to him being clearly the villain here. And they also make sure to show off Glorden, who's his son, this little cute slug-like creature in this film. Honestly, I'm not really sure why Disney hasn't marketed him especially. You'd think they'd be making plushies of him already. But I do think this makes it look like that at some point in the original version of this story, Lord Grygon was actually supposed to be on Elio's side, or at the very least, a good guy. Since he's shown talking with Elio in the original trailer, albeit talking about some pretty disturbing things.
I ate my mother at birth, but in moments of great success, I regret it.
That's a thing for your species?
No, just a me thing. Everyone was shocked.
Admittedly, this whole bit is played off for laughs, but it does really make me wonder what this original story was supposed to be like. I'd be very curious to see that. But obviously, what we have here is the final story and the final film product, and honestly, again, I think it's pretty well done regardless. I think one thing that I've seen a lot of people knock against this film for is the liar reveal trope, which I've actually talked about here on the channel before. This film obviously does lean into the liar reveal trope, with Elio telling the Alien Council that he's the leader of Earth just so they'll keep him and let him stay, because he doesn't feel like he belongs on Earth, obviously. And I think this could have easily been a huge misstep when it came to this film's direction, since the liar reveal trope is generally a pretty bad trope unless it's actually done well. In some cases it is, in my opinion. Like a film like Tootsie actually does this trope relatively well, in my opinion, or something like Rango as well. Pixar has actually already made a film with this trope, and arguably the worst version of it with A Bug's Life, but I think it's actually handled pretty well here in Elio. Elio still does manage to be a pretty endearing and likable protagonist with a lot of relatability to him, unlike Flick from A Bug's Life. So even though this film does very blatantly do the liar reveal trope as well, I honestly think it's handled a lot better here, and I can't really fault Elio as much because he is a child. I feel like it's a lot more easy to see where he's coming from here, because he's not gonna totally think rationally in a situation like this. I honestly blame Flick a lot more in his his movie because he's very clearly an adult character and he just doesn't handle anything well at all, and he's very not responsible. Of course though, that's just my take. If you like A Bug's Life and you like Flick, let me know down below, and I'm happy if you do. As long as it makes you happy, that's what matters. And personally, I was really happy with how Elio handled it. And like I mentioned before, Lord Rygon does have a son named Glorden who actually has a very similar story that parallels Elio's own story. Much like Elio in a lot of ways, he feels like he doesn't belong in his race of aliens, and he also doesn't feel like his parental figure really listens to him. Nor does he really feel understood by anyone around him, at least until Elio comes along. The race of aliens that Glorden belongs to are all super advanced warriors that are expected to enter their big robotic suit at a certain age. And after they get into this suit, there's nothing left in their life except for fighting and killing and war, and that's really about it. And obviously, this isn't what Glorden wants for the rest of his life, and he wants to be able to make his own decisions. Similar to Elio, he also has to deal with the loss of a parent since his mom left for war one day and she never came home. And because of this, Elio and Glorden are able to have a really wholesome bond together, and honestly, this is the highlight of the movie for me. This is definitely where all the heart comes from. It harkens back to a lot of stuff like E.T. or even Lilo and Stitch, although not quite to that degree, but still very, very well done. And again, much better quality than I usually expect from modern Pixar. Like this, honestly, again, is one of my favorite movies they've done in a long time. Pixar's brand in general could be considered very devalued lately just because of the fact a lot of their films in the early 2020s went straight to Disney+. Soul and Luca ended up going straight to Disney+, and not even as a paid premium option, which I find very wild. This was around the exact same time that Disney was charging Disney Plus users $30 a piece to watch things like live-action Mulan or Raya and the Last Dragon. But don't worry guys, the latest Pixar movie is here for free, totally not devaluing the brand at all. I think whether intentional or not, the fact Disney was putting a lot of these Pixar films on Disney Plus for free and charging money for pretty much every other new movie really caused the brand to be devalued. Pixar was once viewed as the most prestigious American animation studio out there, but I think definitely in recent memory that reputation has really fizzled away a lot, unfortunately. But I feel like a movie like Elio and also a movie like Soul really feel like that classic age of Pixar when it seemed like they were untouchable and could do no wrong. And overall, I honestly really enjoyed this film, especially as an autistic person. A lot of my biggest videos on YouTube are me talking about autism, and most of my audience actually found me through that. So especially if you're on the spectrum like myself, I really recommend you check out this film, or at least give it a chance. I think there's definitely something to be found in here, especially for those like me. And again, that's really what makes this feel like a very personal story to me, but unfortunately, it looks like the film is not projecting to do well at all. It's currently projected to be Pixar's worst box office opening ever, even behind Elemental, which is crazy to me. However, something like Elemental did actually prove it had legs, and it did end up being a box office success in the end, so I really hope the same thing does happen to Elio here, since it already has good reviews on IMDb. And overall, a lot of critical sites are giving it good reviews. Although, of course, inevitably, a lot of the anti-woke grifters on YouTube are just bashing this film since they see it might be a flop and they want it to be a flop since it has a diverse Hispanic kid in it. Oh boy. But in all honesty, I think the biggest reason why Elio has a really rough start so far at the box office is just the abysmal marketing that Disney did for this film. Like I showed at the start of this video, the majority of the marketing they've done for Elio, if at all, is actually just through other Disney movies. They had live-action Stitch of all things react to the Elio trailer, which is such a stupid marketing tactic, and honestly it just feels like they wanted to lift up live-action Stitch more than anything, which they probably did. Heck, live-action Stitch has been marketed far more by Disney than Elio has ever gotten. Disney managed to put out more marketing for Stitch in the span of 6 months than Elio managed to get in 2 years. That's absolutely awful. In addition to this, they've also used another Disney property that is also currently relevant to promote Elio, that being Phineas and Ferb. They had a promotional teaser where Phineas and Ferb are talking to Elio and Glorden, which again just feels more like they're trying to lift up Phineas and Ferb season 5 than Elio. It's completely baffling, and it just makes it more obvious that Disney would rather bank on established IPs like Lilo and Stitch or Phineas and Ferb than something original like Elio, and it really sucks. Disney does clearly not care to see this film succeed, so I really just hope it gets legs and good reviews and word of mouth make this film succeed like Elemental was able to get. This film was honestly really great in my opinion, and in some ways, I even liked it more than Inside Out 2. There's definitely a lot of aspects of this film that really touched me personally. So I'd say if you're kind of skeptical of it and have seen the marketing for this film, definitely go give it a chance, because the marketing really doesn't do it any justice at all. It's great, and I highly recommend you check it out. But what do you think? Is Elio worth it? Are you planning to see it in theaters, or are you gonna wait till Disney Plus? Or do you really not care to see this film at all? Let me know in the comments below. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed watching my review on Elio here. If you enjoy this, be sure to subscribe, since I make videos on film and animation overall, so if you like this video, you'll probably like the others I have planned as well. If you have a suggestion of something for me to cover here on YouTube in the future, be sure to join my Discord. We have a questions and suggestions channel there where you can suggest things for me to cover here on YouTube in the future, and also just interact with like-minded people overall. You can also check out my letterbox to see my film and TV journey overall, and check out films and shows and see reviews for them that I haven't put here on YouTube. Special thanks to my patrons DDC1996 and Trayvon Gibson for supporting me over there. Also thanks to my YouTube members Jared the Rabbit, Balf Games, You the Guardian, and David Deister for supporting me that way too. I really appreciate y'all's support in general, and I appreciate you for making it to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say or learned something new from it. But regardless, I've been Otterly Noah, and I'll see you on the otter side. Bye!